What up, chat? Alright, relax, bro. Relax. This is not a stream. What up, YouTube? Dude, I suck ass at this content creating thing. Anyways, would you rather be named Steve or Steven? I think that's a question that everybody asks themselves at least once or twice a day, without a doubt. So let's get right to it. I am going to try my very best to try to get best of both worlds, both sides, so that I can come to an actual clean conclusion on if it's better to be named Steve or Steven, because it is a very, very, very complicated question. All right, I have met a lot of Stevens and I have met a lot of Steves. Steves, and they're all chill. Both of them have always been very chill, but I mean, if you had to make me choose between one or the other, I don't know. So let's look into it. So let's start off with Steve. How many people in the world are actually named Steve? Let me check. In the world are. So supposedly there are roughly around 1.5 million to 2.5 million people named Steve in the world. Let's see how much Steven has. Now, for this one, for Steven, there is no global exact count, but demographics suggest, according to Google, that there are roughly around 3 to 4 million people in the world named Steven. So right off the bat, Steve already has an advantage, right? It's not as saturated as Steven. Steven has a lot more people with that name. So it's more basic, it's more common, it's more generic. It's like, oh, Steven, I met Steven last week at the grocery store, you know? With Steve, it's like, okay, I met a Steve a month ago at the grocery store, not last week. So it's different, you know? When it comes to the amount of people that have the name, I would say Steve takes the win because it's not as basic and generic as Steven, okay? Now, let's go for sound, right? Steven. Steve. Steven has 2 syllables, right? As a person, I would much rather say a name that has only 1 syllable. I don't have to put any effort into it. I could just be like, yo, what's up, Steve? That's it. When it comes to Steven, it's like, what's up, Steven? Steven. It's like you're saying ven in Spanish, which is like Steve ven. Come here. Ven in Spanish means come here. So it's like Steve ven. Steve, come here. So you might get them a little bit confused if they're bilingual. Like, hey, Steven, they're going to come right to you. It's like, whoa. I didn't tell you to come to me. I just wanted to say hi. I would say when it comes to pronunciation of the name, Steve would take it. It's a lot easier to say. It's a lot faster to say. Let's say you're in a situation where you have to get the fuck out quickly. It's like you're at a club. There's a bunch of bitches outside waiting for you, and you have to leave in 0.2 seconds or else they're going to leave. Yet you have to wait for your friend Steve or Steven that's still in the bathroom, right? So you go in the bathroom and he's in the stall. I don't know how to say it. In the stall. Fuck, dude. Whatever, he's in there. And you have to say, Steve, let's get the fuck out of here. Let's go. That's faster, right? If you were to have to say, Steven, let's get the fuck out of here. We have to leave. That takes a little longer. There's a difference. You could say, oh, there's barely any difference. It's like 0.2 seconds of a difference. It doesn't matter. I just said in the beginning, the girls want to leave in 0.2 seconds. If you don't get out of the fucking club in 0.2 seconds, they're gone. So you go in the bathroom, Steve, let's get the fuck out of here. Boom. Instead of Steven, right there, you already lost time. Let's get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? There's a difference. So right now, I would say Steve is up 2 points. Steven is down 2 points. Now, let's say you're writing an essay, right? Let's say you're writing an essay for school and you have to make it 500 words. No, not 500 words. You have to make it, let's say you're writing a article on your school's online forum, right? And you know how sometimes in those forums, let's say you have to write an essay, not an article. And you know how sometimes in those forums you have to write a specific amount of characters? You have to write like 600 characters or letters. I think that's the same thing, right? Not words, characters. And you're struggling on what words to use that are longer because you don't want to write too much. I would say this is where Steven takes the win, right? Because you can mention your name multiple amount of times compared to Steve, where it's only 5 letters instead of 6, right? So let's say you say your name's Steven 20 times in your essay. That's already 20 more characters than you would have been using if you were to be named Steve and you were making an essay on an online forum where you need 600 characters. So right there's a competitive advantage for Steven. So when it comes to essays and online forums, I would say Steven takes the win. So right now it's 2-1, right? 2-1. Now let's look at the average height of Steve and Steven, right? So males named Steve will generally average about 5'9" in the United States and 5'7" globally. All right. I wouldn't say that's tall. I would say that's average, right? So let me look at Steven. Okay, as well, 5'9". That was expected. But there are people named Steven who are very tall. Look at Steven Adams, NBA player, 6'11". Steven Spielberg, 5'7". Okay, that was retarded. Never mind. So I would say they both took the tie here, right? So right now it's 3-2. It's 3-2 because they both get a point. So Steve is still up by 1. I would say let's do like 1 or 2 more comparisons. According to Google and according to people on Reddit, Steve is treated more like a casual and friendly and more approachable name, while Steven, it's more formal, right? So when somebody introduces themselves as, hey, I'm Steve, it's usually expected to be like one of the people, you know, like, hey, you're one of the guys, according to this, not my words. Whereas a Steven is often perceived as a slightly more professional or traditional authority. So basically a Steven is more chill, a Steve is more chill and a Steven is more uptight, right? Would I agree? Probably. Steve sounds a lot more chill than Steven. Steven sounds like my boss. My boss's name. Oh, my boss is Steven. Whereas Steve, it's like, yo, I just met Steve at the bar. He's pretty chill, right? I'd say Steve takes that one. That's 4-2 right there. I'm going to do one more. And I have a question. What is the meaning of these names? You know, every name has their Latin meaning. You know, there's some names that have a meaning like the sun, Ra's al Ghul, if I'm not tripping. But anyways, what does Steve mean in Latin? So Steve in Latin translates to crown or wreath. It was adapted from the ancient Greek word Stephanos. In ancient Greek, a crown, usually lower wreath, was placed on the heads of victors in athletic contests or wars to symbolize honor, reward, and achievement. Okay, Steve. Same thing. Who would have fucking thought, right? I don't know, I feel like Steven's copying Steve a little bit here. So I'm gonna give this one to, I'll just give it to Steven. They're still losing though, 4-3. But anyways, look, if you were to ask me, what would you rather be named? I would probably say Steve, because it comes all the way back to my third point. Steve just sounds a lot more chill. Like, hey, yo, what's up, Steve? And Steven, it's more like, hey, what's up, Steven? What's up, Steven? It's not very cool. It's not that cool. I would much rather be a Steve. So that's pretty much about it. This is my first would you rather. Obviously, this was the shittiest one, but I will come up with better ones. I think my next one is gonna be some bullshit like, I don't wanna make it racial or political yet because then I'm gonna get in trouble. But if these videos start catching on, then I am gonna fucking do that shit. I would say, actually no, I'm not gonna spoil the next video. Fuck no. You guys are gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to subscribe and like this video for you to be able to get notification of the other video. All right. Hope you enjoyed. And if your name's Steve or Steven, comment your name. Be like, yo, I'm a Steve and I hate my name and I want to be called Steven. Or if your name's Steven, be like, yo, I'm named Steven and I hate my name and I want to be called Steve. So let me know. Peace out.